In today's Zentangle session, we're going to do another tile with two separate tangles. The first is called Yumemi, and the second is called Nzepple. And I'll give the proper credits to those who did the step outs for these in the description box. But let's jump right in with our drawing. Now the first is Yumemi, which is a flower or botanical tangle. And it has 5 petals. So we're going to draw a little string or cluster of these flowers across the center diagonally of our tile. And so I'm just going to begin in roughly the center here with the largest of them, just in my preferred layout here. And you just draw sort of a teardrop shape or an oval that's smaller on one side if you want to think of it that way. And if you just kind of create these as you go out, it's almost like if you do this little teardrop shape, the 5 petal thing just sort of takes care of itself. And they don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. You just want to get the idea of 5 similar petals. Now let's get the placements in before we add all the final details to this. So I want to draw another one that's going to come up about here. And in this case, I'm just having it just bump up against there, but you can, of course, draw under or draw behind and overlap these shapes, which I may end up doing as well. But I'm just creating some of these to kind of go across the page, as I said. So now I'm going to do a little bit smaller one, kind of off center here a little bit. And it is going to go up, tuck underneath just a little. Because it's going to go off the page, I just have to imagine where that would go. And just like that. And I'm going to do another one over here. I think this one will just bump up against it as well. It's going to go off the page. And maybe another smaller one over in here. And when you tuck a pattern underneath, like I've done here, it just helps to create the effect of depth and dimension. So it's just a neat way to achieve that very, very simply. And I'll do one more over here. And drawing off the page is not difficult, but it's something that you have to be aware of. So as you're creating your shapes, you still get the desired effect. And maybe one more in here too. Let's see. Just to make this look a little more cluster-like. So now that we've got this little random cluster of flowers that sort of scatter their way across the tile, we want to create an aura and draw a line around this entire area. So just, you can watch here what I'm doing. I'm just going to leave a little white space between the floral designs and my aura. And auras are sometimes done to sort of separate one tangle area or one pattern from another and to allow you to more easily create details behind it. We're going to create a backdrop with the other or second tangle. And this just helps to separate those lines both visually and from an artistic standpoint, helping us to see the visuals easier as we draw it. So there we go. Now let's finish embellishing this tangle. So the Yumemi tangle actually isn't just these petals, but each petal will have a little triangular spot that is inked in. It doesn't have to go real far down or be a certain type of point or anything like that. Just a little bit of a triangular piece that's coming in with little curved lines, maybe if you want to accent the shape of a petal more easily or readily. But we're just inking in these little triangles on every petal that we've drawn. This will, of course, give some nice contrast to the drawing, but we also are going to add some little fold or flick lines, I call them, coming up from the center, going outwards along these petals. And there's no certain length or number of them that there needs to be. I just try to alternate them so they don't look all identical. And then one additional thing that we can do to each flower to bring a little boldness is do a rounding in between the petals where that little gap is. And just bolden that up. Here, I'm going to zoom in, let you see what I'm doing better. So I just create a little rounded area that connects those lines, and then I ink that in. And just follow that line where the petals are joined, and just darken that up a little bit. It'll give these flowers a little more boldness, a little more contrast. So we're going to just repeat that process for all of these petals and flower shapes that we've drawn. So now that we've got our pattern there, we can move on to the next step, which initially we're going to draw a border and connect it behind these before we draw in our second shape. So what I would suggest, since we're going to add a double border or dual bordered lines here, we want to come in maybe, a half an inch or so that we still have some room outside of that. And we're just going to draw a single line that goes all the way around the edge, just follows the edge of the tile. And so this is going to come out right about there and go down. About like that, and it looks like that one will be behind. Now if you want, you can draw your next line right now too. And we'll just go out a little ways from there. And we're again following the edge of the tile, or we're aura-ing, or creating an aura around following that line we just created. So once we have it done, it's like that. Now what I want you to do, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to make this outer one more bold. So I'm going to go around it. If you want to create a separate line and fill in between it, however you want to do that, or if you have a wider nibbed pen, you can do it that way, but just make that one darker. Just make it a little different than the one on the inside there. So we've got the borders in, we've got our Yumemi flowers going through. So now we're going to add the tangle called Nzepple. Now this is normally a tangle done on a grid, like a square grid, but we're going to do a version of it called Crazy Nzepple, which simply means that our grid isn't going to follow a standard square pattern. We're going to draw lines and still use those lines in a grid fashion, but we're not going to be concerned about that they're evenly spaced, and we're going to create some crazy shapes in the background. So watch how I do this, and then you can do something similar. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but this is what you can do to start. So I'm just going to draw a line and imagining where that cuts through and just connect. And we're going to stop at our border, and I'm going to draw another line, and it does not have to be perpendicular or parallel. We just want to create a overlapping grid of lines in the background here. And you just stop at the border or at the flowers, whichever happens there for you. And I like to try to avoid having two lines right next to each other that are parallel. So that just helps with the effect we're about to create. Maybe one more here. Let's draw one. Now I'll leave that space open. So once you have a grid there in place, and let me make one other line. I'm going to do it this way just so I have a few more options up in that spot, and maybe one here too. And you'll see why. So now that we've got this crisscrossing set of lines, it's not technically a grid, but it's going to form a grid for us. Now within each of these spaces that we've created, we're going to draw a shape by following the lines, but we want to round the corner instead of going right to the corner edge and create a little bit thicker or heavier line if we can as we do this. Now I'll show you in a moment exactly what I mean, but let me describe it one other way for you. Imagine if you were to take a balloon and squish it into this space, and let's say that balloon was flat, but the balloon wouldn't perfectly fit into these corners just because of the way balloons bend with the air. They would sort of be full and just squeeze around these corners. Maybe something like that. So let me show you again here in this one next to it. So we round the corners, and we just follow inside each of those spaces to fill in wherever those lines are. Now in some cases you might imagine that they go in behind the flowers. In some cases maybe they stop at the flower. It's up to you. But just make sure you do that little shape. I'm going to zoom in again and do a couple this way for you to see. And it just automatically creates that thickness looking, that darker look to it by being a little heavier line. And because we're following that other line, it helps to accentuate that as well. But we're just squeezing these orbs, these little balloons, if you will, into these areas that our grid has provided for us. So here's an example of one that I imagined that went behind the flower. So I didn't do the corner in these areas because I can't see those corners. And having little tiny gaps like this is exactly what you want, because that is part of what makes the design. Otherwise, we're just tracing lines again. So now we want to add some graphite to shade these shapes. So the easiest way to do some of the shading here would be to create a little round amount of graphite at the center of each of these flowers, so that when we disperse that with and blend that with our tortillon, it will create a little sense of that the flower goes down there and that it's a little cup. Just like real life flowers seem to have that sense to them. So we'll just do that, blend this outward a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, that's just how we start. And then you can kind of spread that graphite up along those little hash lines that we made, also to help them look like little folds and bends in these leaves. Okay, so that already helps a little bit. I'm going to use my other mechanical pencil, just the lead's a little bit darker in this one. So now with our Nzepple, there's several ways this could be shaded, but the way I like to do it is to highlight or accentuate the roundness and give some volume to these little circle or balloons that we've created. And so I do that by rounding, following the inner line, and I like to do it all on one side. Though we normally don't worry about light sourcing and shadows, it does create a consistent effect throughout the drawing, and that can really help to sell that sense of these little bubbles inside that grid work. So I'm creating a little bit of graphite here around that what I'm seeing as the bottom side of this Nzepple shape, and here I'm not going to have much to do. I also wanted to mention, I almost forgot, that I have finally finished preparing the initial Discord server for the Tangles and Tunes channel. And that means that all of you who are viewers or subscribers to this channel are welcome to click the link that's in my channel description, and I will also start including it in each video so that people have easy access. But you simply click that link and it will take you right to the Discord server and get you signed up. There's a little onboarding process. It doesn't, there's no fees or anything like that, but it just gives you the opportunity to answer a few questions so that the server knows just how to connect you in the best possible way for your own interests. But it's simply a place where the Tangles and Tunes community can communicate, where we can get to know each other if we so choose, and you're not obligated to give away any information or anything like that, but we can just get to know each other and communicate by text messages. There's even an audio channel where you can talk if you'd like, if you have a microphone on your system or your phone. And you can also share your own drawings and your own artwork that you do, either when you're following along or if you have something else that you want to share with us. You can make requests, we can talk and chat back and forth, provide feedback, and just have a fun time communicating that way. So feel free, please, to click that Discord link in the video or on my channel up in the header there and join that. And if you don't have the Discord app, it may ask you to download it, but that also is free. And depending on your system setup, it may not even be necessary. You can also access Discord just through a web browser as well and have the same features. So whichever you prefer, I like to use the app because it's a little easier and cleaner process. But that's just some information there I wanted to get out to you. So now though, back to the drawing. We've got our flowers, we've got our Nzepple background, and we're basically done. Now, we could, if we wanted to, add a drop shadow around the flowers. And what I might do here, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to use a black colored pencil, which doesn't blend as nicely as graphite, but it has a more distinct darkness to it, so it can create a better shadow sometimes. Let's see how that looks if I just do a little bit outside the edge. And so there is our finished tile for today with our two Zentangle patterns, Yumemi and Nzepple. And I hope that you had a good time drawing with me today and that you had fun following along. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon back here in the Tangles and Tunes channel. Take care now. Bye-bye.